everybody. So as I was editing the egg video, how to use bulk eggs in a way to preserve them and freeze them and freezer cooking and all that good stuff, I realized that the video is getting really long, and my videos tend to be a little bit longer, and I'm trying to correct that because I personally love watching long videos, but not everyone can put YouTube on in the background while they're in the office. So I am trying to respect that. So anyway, I realized that I basically had two separate videos because I was talking about chicken eggs and some of the different things that come with having chickens and having eggs going bad, things like that, and was kind of given some tips and some just general information while I was cooking. And what I thought I would do is I would pull all of that information out and separate it into basically an chicken egg video that just talked in generalization about eggs themselves versus the cooking and stuff like that. So what I want to do is I want to add to that the informational clips that I had, and I needed to video this introduction clip just to make a new video make sense, because I had not originally intended to do two separate videos. So that's what this is. So this is an introduction, as well as I wanted to just go ahead and talk about a few more things. So in the video, I talk about eggs as your hens lay, or as your hens age, they slowly stop laying. They will lay less and less every year. So you add hens to your flock every year so that you constantly have new layers, because typically in that first year, if your hen starts laying in the fall, she's going to lay through the winter. So one of the things I wanted to bring up is when I say they stop laying as they get older, the first 2 years are your hens' most productive years. So if they start laying, if you get hens in the spring and they start laying in the fall, because the average chicken will start laying between 18 and 21 weeks. Now, some of them will start laying earlier, like around 16 weeks. I've had one start laying at 14 weeks. Some breeds will actually start laying like 25 to 30 weeks. So depending on the breed of your chicken, they're not going to start laying for months. So if you get chicks in the spring or the summer, they may not start laying until October, November, December. So that's why when I say they're going to lay through that first winter, it's because they just start laying. So when it gets cold, they've got eggs in their cycle. So the cold is not necessarily going to affect them. So they're going to lay through that first winter. Now the next year, when they are a year and a half old, they will still probably lay through the winter, but not consistently, because their bodies will naturally go through a molt, then naturally slow down. And as the days get shorter and the nights get colder, it will slowly take more time for that egg to work down through the production of their system. It's just something they naturally do. So the hens typically will lay 80% of the amount of eggs that they laid the year before. So if you have one hen that starts laying in January, let's say you get her in the fall, and they start laying in January. From January to December, they may lay 300 eggs. So first year, 300 eggs, second year, 240 eggs, and so on down. So that in their lifetime, their entire lifetime, a hen may lay 500 to 600 eggs if you're lucky and they don't get sick and they don't have predator issues, etc. They don't get injured, because any trauma that happens to a hen, including just getting scared. I mean, I've had hens who had, when we had like the dogs come through, or we had a predator attack, for several days, the hens would not lay until they got comfortable again. So you're still looking at maybe 500 to 600 eggs per lifetime for that hen. So when you look at that, when you look at a hen that may lay 300 eggs the first year, but their total lifetime, they're only going to lay 600 or so, your production really goes down that third and fourth year, which is why it's really important to add new layers. My dad only adds new layers every other year, and he just takes, a hit that in between year in the winter, but they still get some. I personally add hens every year. So I also like to hatch my own eggs where he just buys them. He doesn't do any hatching. So that might be part of my problem because I have a chicken math issue where, I just like chickens. So anyway, so I'm going to go through backyard breeds that are typical. And this will vary depending on the part of the country and the part of the world that you are in. But at least for the Southeast, some of the most popular high production chickens are your leghorns, which I personally am not a fan of leghorns. I have a brown leghorn. She is a sweetheart. She is a good layer. I like her. I have a white leghorn. She lays really well, but they are the flightiest dang birds, and they are not friendly. The one chicken that was an egg eater that I had issues with, she was a white leghorn. Anyway, so I am not the biggest fan of leghorns. They do lay great, but as far as like their personalities and stuff, I'm not a huge fan. The Rhode Island Reds, I do not have any of those. They lay around 260 a year. A lot of people love them, but they are a hardy bird and they're a bigger bird. They're also, I believe, a dual purpose bird, so you can eat them as well. Sex lynx and golden comets, they're kind of in the same family. And which I think actually the Rhode Island Reds are like kind of the parent of the sex lynx and Rhode Island Reds. I can't remember what the cross is. But anyway, they are really high production. They range from 250 to 300 per year. And I do have some golden comets and a New Hampshire, and they do lay. Like, they lay. So my oldest girls are golden comets, and they are very, very consistent still. So Americanas, they're about 250 eggs per year. I have several of those, and those are your colored eggs. And then when you get into crossing Americanas with brown egg layers, specifically like Marans and Wyandottes and stuff like that, that's where you get your Easter eggers. So you start getting all your different shades of greens, and you can get peaches and things like that. So I actually have a Wyandotte rooster, and I have been crossing him with Americanas and have gotten some really neat like khaki and olive green eggs out of that cross. So those are really cool birds. Just your barnyard mixes though, but I was breeding specifically for color. So I actually do have a pink egg too, and I think it's where he crossed with maybe my Cochin, because she kind of lays a peachy egg. Anyway, I just find it fascinating. Anyway, back to the thing. Barred rocks. Those are your little black and white Plymouth barred rocks. Really cool looking birds. Very sweet. We've got one. I actually wish we had a few more, but those are 280 eggs average per year, their first year. Wyandottes are 200, and you can have, there's all different kinds of Wyandottes. But they're all kind of in that range of 200 per year. And then Orpingtons, a lot of people love Orpingtons. I think the Sapphire Gems kind of fall in that Wyandotte Orpington area. They're very friendly, do not get me wrong. Orpingtons are very sweet. They've got the nice fluffy butts. They're very cute chickens. They're very broody. They will stop laying when they go broody, so it is what it is. My dad quit carrying Orpingtons a long time ago because he would have like 10 broody hens all at one time. So I have a couple Orpingtons. I don't have many, and I will say they are definitely broodier than a lot of my Cochins are the broodiest. That little brown Cochin, she is so broody, but she is a really good mama. Ostalorps, we have one of those, and she's a very good layer, and they're about 250 eggs per year. Hens will lay 1 egg per day. There are occasions where people are like, oh, my hen laid 2 eggs in a day. Technically, they can, but they average 23 to 26 hours apart. So if you have a hen that lays first thing in the morning, technically, if she lays at, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you could go get one from her in the evening. And then if you went back out there in the morning, there would be another one, because she laid during the day while you were gone. You got it that night and then went out again in the morning, and there was another egg. There is, I think the Guinness Book of World Records is something like 371 eggs from one chicken in a year, which there's only 365 days in a year. So that tells you how often, if that is the Guinness Book of World Records, that tells you how often chickens will lay 2 eggs in a year, or 2 eggs in a day, excuse me. So it's not often. It really is not, but it can happen. But they average 1 egg per day. And if you think about it, the ones that are laying about 200 a year, they're probably going to be laying like every day for a few months, and then like every other day, and then maybe in the winter like once a week. So just a heads up. All right, I think, oh yes, one more thing I wanted to mention while we were talking about this, the bloom on eggs. I will probably get questions about why I picked the cleanest eggs to put in the cartons and then wash the dirty eggs and put them in the refrigerator. So eggs naturally have a bloom on them, and that is to help the egg pass through the system. And it's basically like a coating. And some eggs that you get fresh out of the coop, you'll notice they're almost like have white speckles on them. That's the bloom. And when the egg has the bloom on it, it's kind of a protective coating. And so the egg is not taking in like the air and all that stuff. So if you do not wash them, you can technically leave them out. You can set them in a basket and keep them on the counter until you're ready to use them. And they will actually keep there for several weeks. My great aunt did not have electricity, and she kept eggs out on her countertop all the time. And I mean, they would keep for like a month. And I have had some keep for a couple months. Now, then you will get a couple that go bad, but you know, I try to rotate the freshest eggs. But I do set some to the side to boil because I find that boiling eggs that are older, they peel better. So you can leave them if you do not wash them. And so what I like to do is when I know someone's coming to pick up eggs or whatever, I will package them up and leave them on the counter so they don't get mixed in with all the other eggs and stuff, so that I can give them the freshest eggs. They have the bloom, and then my neighbors around here, they will just go wash them themselves. So if you wash them, you have to put them in the refrigerator though. Once you've washed that bloom off, they can take in, you know, everything from the air because they become porous at that point. So once you wash the eggs, they have to go in the refrigerator. But if you do like me, you can put them on your little carousel out on the counter or leave them in a basket on the counter for a couple weeks. And as you eat the ones out of the refrigerator, which are the oldest, then you can wash them and put them in the refrigerator. So I just kind of cycle them out that way. So just wanted to clear that up, that you can leave your unwashed eggs out on the counter. You do not have to put them automatically in the refrigerator. So those are a few tips. So I'm going to actually from here put all the clips from the other videos in where I was talking about eggs and tips and the water glassing and all that good stuff. And so that's going to play now. So we are in the middle of winter, and with all the snow and ice, some people are not getting eggs from their chickens. So if that is the case, or you want to know how to continuously get eggs from chickens, we do not trick them. We do not use lights. We do not use heat sources. We do not do any of that in the winter. The one thing we do is we make sure we add new babies every year, because when your layers are brand new going into fall, they will typically lay through the winter on their first year, and then they will molt in the fall of that second year. So, and then as your hens get older, they lay less and less and less. So you're less likely to get consistent egg production, even from like your really good layers like Isa Browns and Golden Comets and all that are bred and built for egg production. The older they get, the less they will lay. So if you add a couple to your flock every year, you will typically get eggs almost daily. We go through cycles, like one day we'll get several and the next day we'll get less, and then the next day we'll get several again. So what we have been getting the past couple weeks is one day we'll get 14, and then the next day we'll get 5 or 6, and then the next day we'll get 14. And then it fluctuates between those numbers. But we have about 18 newish layers because we had some from the spring, and then we had some that didn't start laying until right before Christmas, you know, late fall. So we fluctuate with that, and then some of our older girls, they're not laying right now. So we also have 37 chickens, so 2 roosters. So we have 35 hens of varying ages. So even with that many chickens, we lose some every year. Just, it happens. You'll get a broken egg inside them that if you don't catch and get it flushed out, it can kill them. There's always a predator issue. We had a neighbor's dogs who lived a couple roads over. They got out of their fence and they came through, and I don't think they intentionally were trying to kill our chickens. They just thought it was fun to chase them, and a couple of our chickens injured themselves. One broke her hip. So you're gonna lose a few, and it's sad, especially when it's a favorite one. But I don't know that I've gone through a year where we haven't lost 1 or 2. So adding a few to the flock every year is not that big of a deal for us. So if, depending on what your family's needs are and where you're at in the chicken game, and you know how much land you have, how big your coop is, let's say you start out with 3 or 4 chickens, the next year add 2 or 3, and then that way you don't have to add a ton at a time. And then, you know, that 3rd year you're probably going to lose 1 or 2, and you know, your 4th and 5th year they're going to start dying off. Chickens live to maybe 8 years, but that's if they're a really pampered, no predator, no sickness, there's just, that's just not typical. I mean, we've had some that lived several years, but not your whole flock. So, you know, if you've only got a family of 4, you don't need that many hens. So start small, start with 3 or 4, and then the next year add a couple. And then that way you can always keep, you know, 1 or 2 eggs coming in a day, even through the winter. So anyway, that is my chicken advice for today.
So this is why when I clean them, I put them in a pot or something, because when they're down in here and I'm cleaning, they're kind of all holding each other down. But when you put them over here to rinse them, you can tell when you have a floater. And this one's all the way to the top. And that does not mean it's necessarily bad, but I don't want to eat it. So we'll break it open in a minute and see how it looks. Okay, so in addition to the floater, another quick tip is you can look at what your eggs are doing in your bowl or pot. And if you want to use like a clear jar to really check, that would be good. I don't have any that are really floating up other than the one. So I can't really show you the different stages. However, when you're looking in your bowl or whatever, you can see that some are on their side. So if your egg is on your side in the bottom of your bowl, that is a fresh egg. That is a good egg. It's fine. If your eggs are sitting up like this, so they're on the pointy end, but they're still on the touching the bottom, but they're upright, that is a slightly older egg, maybe a week or so old. It is perfectly fine to eat, but that is just letting you know that it is becoming a little bit more porous, so it can take on a tiny bit more water, so it is an older egg. If they are standing up and bouncing or slightly raised, so that if the bottom of your glass is here and it's doing this when you're moving it around, or it's just slightly above, it is still an okay egg to eat. However, it is getting older. When it comes halfway up into the water but is not breaking the surface, you can still eat these eggs. However, when it breaks the surface of the water and is a full floater like this one was, that's letting you know that the egg is fully porous, it's taking in air, it's taking in water, and it is an older egg. You can break that egg open and it be perfectly fine. However, you know at that point that the likelihood of getting a bad egg is even greater. So these are all fine. There's a few that when you move the pan, they're kind of dancing around, but they are okay. So let's break this one egg open and just see what it looks like and see if it's a bad egg. It may be perfectly fine. And it is. So this was the one that was floating all the way to the top, and it is fine. You can smell it, you can look at it. You can tell the difference because this yolk is sitting almost flush and the egg white is very loose. So you know that that is an older egg. If this yolk is sitting really high up above the egg yolk, and some of them that are like perfectly fresh, I mean, they are like just sitting on top. That's a very fresh egg. The older the egg, the looser this egg white will be and very runny. The fresher the egg, the thicker it will be, and the higher this yolk will sit and the more dense and concise that yolk will be. If you break open the egg and that yolk is attached to the top of your shell, that's probably a bad egg. Actually, that is a bad egg. You don't want to eat that egg. Once that yolk kind of detaches from the white and starts sticking to the shell, it's going bad. You don't want to eat that egg. So if you question it, you can't smell it, look at the egg white. How runny is it? Is it cloudy? How far up does this egg yolk sit? This one is still edible. But what I will probably do is throw it in the pan and feed it back to the chickens or cook it up for the dogs. So that's another thing to consider. Eggs are a great commodity, especially if you have a ton of them. Now you can water glass them and save them for the winter. We have some that are water glassed, and I will get those out here in a minute and crack a few open because I actually water glassed them at the end of 2020, but we never needed them. So we'll see how fresh those are just to give you a comparison. But what you can do is if you have some eggs that are cracked or some eggs that are starting to float or some eggs that are floating at the top, don't throw them out. You can cook them and feed them back to your chickens. You can cook them without salt and pepper and feed them to your dogs, your cats. You can feed them to pigs. I don't have pigs. I don't know a lot about pigs. I know they eat pretty much everything. 1 or 2 eggs is not going to suffice for a pig, but you know, if you've got a couple of little piglets and you want to throw them some extra food, you can feed them eggs. But in an emergency situation, like there's nothing at the stores, you have empty shelves, there's no meat or protein or eggs, eggs are great to have on hand. If you don't have chicken feed, if you don't have dog food because you can't find any for a little bit because shipments are delayed, cook them some eggs. Give them the extra eggs. Give them the old eggs. Keep your eggs and do something with them. If you do nothing but cook them off and grind them to pulp and put them in your garden for calcium, use the eggs. You can never have too many eggs. Okay, so I am getting out my water glassed eggs that I did, I want to say August, September. No, it might have been later than that. It might have been October, but I did them in fall of 2020 and we never needed them. So they kind of got pushed to the back of my pantry. So I found them with the pantry challenge. I kind of knew they were there, but they actually still look good. So I may regret this, but we're going to break a couple open to see if they're bad. And I may stink up my house, but let's find out. Okay, so here is my jar. It's a half-gallon jar. I don't smell anything, which, you know, my smell is pretty bad. So let's just take a couple. Probably should see if it floated. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. See how it's sticking to the top and how it's runny and gross? But I don't smell it. So technically it may still be usable. If you water glass eggs, let me know if you would still use that. Okay, so this one doesn't look nearly as bad. Yes, it's runny, and that yolk was not sticking up, but it wasn't sticking to the top. And it smells fine, so that, I would probably still use that one. And I know with water glassed eggs, they say that they will, you know, look different, but that they're still usable. But these are old. That one didn't sound good when I broke it. Oh, so watery. Okay, now this is a really good example. This one is actually starting to turn black where it's sticking to the top. So I definitely would not eat that one. But I don't smell it, but I personally would not eat that. I'm going to do a couple more just because. So this one didn't feel as bad. Still pretty watery, but that yolk held together pretty decent. No smell. Well, now I have to do this one because I think I cracked them. Again, that one held up pretty good. So here's another interesting thing. A lot of people say, oh, well, I only like white eggs, or oh, I only like brown eggs. Well, guess what? All the brown eggs are white on the inside. And if you scrub hard enough, a lot of times you can get the brown off. So this, think of it as like a paint sprayer inside of a chicken. The egg forms, the yolk forms, and then the egg forms, and it's soft. And then as it kind of goes through the body, it's like it spray paints a coat on it almost. So the only eggs that are not white on the inside are blue eggs and a lot of green eggs. But the green eggs, when you break them open, a lot of times they'll be blue on the inside and then kind of a greenish brown on the outside. And it's where that kind of brown coating is applied over a blue egg. So that's where you get like your Easter eggers and all that. Blue eggs will be the same color all the way through, so they will be blue. But white and brown eggs, they're all white on the inside. I've never come across one that wasn't. All right, so technically these, which are almost a year and a half old, or yeah, like 14, 15 months old, most of them I'm seeing are technically still edible. So there you go, watered glass eggs. That's the first time I had ever done it. We've always had layers during the winter. So, and I didn't end up needing them, but now we know. So I might do that again just in case in the future.
Okay, everybody, all the clips have been inserted, and I know it was a little jumbled and choppy just because I took those clips out of the cooking videos, so they didn't flow as well, but I hope you have learned something. If you have any questions or any other information that you maybe want to share from me from things that you have learned, I mean, if you want to argue with me, you can. I don't know that you'll win or that I will believe you, but you know, just kidding. I'm not starting a YouTube argument. But if you would like to leave me comments, if you have questions or information that you would like to share for me, please do so. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked the information. And if you have not subscribed, please do so and share the video. If you are getting into chickens, if you are new to chickens and you want to share with another friend that maybe is in the same boat as you, by all means, please share the video. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one.